About eight. I got at least 30 or 40 minutes, probably 30 minutes or so.
Oh, okay, perfect. So you'll get most of the meat here. Most of the meat. I get you can kind of see behind me, dude, this mountain, or you're probably driving, but this mountain of diapers and wipes and all that. I actually hung up this little sign to block it. But what a blessing. What a blessing that shower was. I could not believe um just the provision, the supernatural provision for the baby, all the clothes, all the furniture, um, diapers, wipes, everything, man. A trash can for the diapers, just everything. So super, super blessed, super grateful for that. But tonight, I wanted to talk about the leverage of perspective, which is it's a very cool word. It's a very cool concept. Um, I could probably share my screen for the notes that I have. But I'll probably put them up in a minute. Anyway, so pretty much, if you think about leverage, I shared a little graphic that I had my Gemini AI generate for me. And I told it that there was a heavy rock on one side of a seesaw that was weighing the seesaw down. And on the other side was a guy, and there's a rain cloud over his head, and he's sad and everything. And basically, the idea is, and the rock was labeled unbelief. So the unbelief will weigh us down, and because it has all the leverage and leverage is such a powerful concept. If you look at it from a business standpoint, I have a lot of different people that work for me and stuff. And because I have all those people working for me, I have a ton of leverage. I can put in a little bit, which is me going to the job site and telling them what to do. And then they can do all of this work. And then I can come back and check on it, and I only have to input a little bit of my energy to manage this project, and I have all of these things that are getting done because I have all this leverage from these people. And the same thing is true with all these different spiritual principles. They're all leverage points. Money is a leverage, is a great, great leverage. You can use money to offset your capacity tremendously. So there's so many different ways that we can have leverage. Leverage is such a key when it comes to business and life, relationships, but especially when it comes to our faith, because our faith is our leverage. It talks about in Hebrews chapter 11, it says faith is the substance of things hoped for, or it's the leverage of things that are hoped for. And tonight specifically, we're going to talk about the leverage of perspective, because our perspective is so crucial. Mike, you and I were having a conversation, and it was like we're both like, oh my gosh, this guy totally sucks that we work for, and this guy that we do work with, he totally sucks. And it's so easy sometimes to find the guys that really suck. And I almost wanted to say, hey, let's put that aside for a minute and think about all of the wins and like all of the customers that we're really, really thankful for, because these guys are great to deal with. These guys are running a tight ship. These guys always pay on time and stuff. And I'm trying more and more and more to not really worry so much about the stuff that would be potentially discouraging to me, and focus on the stuff that I'm excited about and I'm proud of, and those different things, because it's just a shift of perspective, because I could look at different things going on in the business or things that are going on in my personal life. And I could just say, wow, it really feels like I am losing on all these different fronts. But just the power of a shift of perspective is so crucial. And I wanted to share a little three-step process, and I'll go ahead and share a graphic on this. Sorry, I hit the mute button on accident, but this is a little graphic that I put together that just kind of summarizes my thoughts about this particular topic, the three-step process for overriding unbelief in real time. Um, I'll give you the bullets and then I'll break them down. But number one is recognizing the unbelief. And the next one is to change your point of view. And then the third step is taking action. So this is just a um, very simple three-step process for overcoming unbelief, for maximizing the leverage of our perspective. Now, I did a talk probably about a year ago called 10 Tips for Changing Your Season. The number one tip was change your perspective. And so it's so easy to pick the things that are going wrong, the things that we're not happy with. And sometimes you actually have to really look for the things that you're proud of and the things that are going right and stuff. And it's like a powerful exercise when you feel a little bit down, just to start writing a list of things that you're grateful for. You know, by the time you've written 40 things that you're thankful for, that you're grateful for, that you appreciate, you're just not going to be that bummed out anymore. It's really, really hard. You can't be, experiencing these positive emotions of gratitude and the negative emotions of dissatisfaction or anxiety or any of that kind of stuff. They did a study on it. I think it was like a Stanford or Harvard study or something. And that's what they found is that you can't be experiencing gratitude and experiencing anxiety at the same time. So you're either experiencing one or the other. One's always going to overpower the other. Unbelief and faith, they can't coexist. They're always going to be both. You're always going to have a little bit of unbelief or doubt and a certain degree of faith. It's just about trying to make sure that you have more faith than you have unbelief. And I'll give you those three steps again: recognizing the unbelief, recognizing the doubt, recognizing the lack of faith, and then changing that point of view, and then taking action. So it all starts, The Battlefield is the Mind, great book by Joyce Meyer. The battlefield is in the mind. Every single attack from the enemy, most of the time, is coming from the mind. He's attacking us in the mind, and it's our own thoughts. He makes us think that they're our own thoughts. It's like you were saying it earlier, Mike. It's like you're sitting there and you're thinking about all these things that are going wrong, and woe is me and all that stuff, and you're just like, wait a minute, what the heck am I thinking about? Like, where did this come from? Like, this isn't me. This isn't real. This isn't true. We talk all the time about the having the evil report, and whose report do you believe? Like the Israelites when they were coming back from the promised land, when they were spying out the land, and they came back and they had an evil report, but Joshua and Caleb, they had a good report. They said, we are more than capable of going and taking the land. And that's absolutely the perspective that we need to have in our daily life in every single circumstance and situation. It's tough. It's tough to go into, situations that are uncomfortable or things that we know are not going our way or they're stacked against us, and to be able to maintain confident expectation in God's word and God's promises. So let's talk about the first one, just recognizing unbelief. It is sometimes very difficult to recognize that there's doubt and there's unbelief. I remember one time, this is about a year ago, it was a house that we're working on. It's like a $20 million house. I mean, this place was freaking crazy, crazy expensive. And but I'm walking through this house. It's a project that my team's working on, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like we're not making the money I thought we were going to be making on this. And then I'm seeing all these things that are going to cost more money to repair. And I just like have this feeling of dread every time I'm coming to this, frankly, like the most beautiful house probably that we've ever done. The most just like portfolio stuff. And I'm dreading coming to this house. I'm dreading walking the stairs. And I'm looking around, and it's like there's so much like unbelief in there. And it comes from this thing that we do as humans where we're always trying to conserve energy. We always have these defense mechanisms that are just primal instincts that, like, when we touched our hand on the stove and we burned it, well, we don't go and touch the stove again, right? And the same thing is true like with our experiences. Like we might have a situation that goes poorly, and then all of a sudden we just paint everything with that brush when we come into similar circumstances down the road. That's projecting the past trauma into present circumstances. And I do this every single day when I open up my spreadsheet, my back end spreadsheets, and I'm looking in the economics of the individual projects, and I'm looking at the cost relative to how much we're collecting and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, there's way more going out than should be. There's not enough staying in and all this different stuff. And it's like, I've had so many projects that came in under budget or over budget, I should say. And that I'm looking for these, um, these jobs to have losses. I'm looking for these jobs to not be on budget and all this stuff. And I find that it is in my mind. It's just I'm pre-programmed, I'm primed to go in there and to find these failures and these different things. And like I'm going on these jobs and I'm looking for, failures in quality and different stuff like that. And when I'm looking at my goals, I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, all these other times that I set goals and I didn't achieve them. And it's just past trauma projected into present circumstances. And man, that is unbelief. That is doubt. That is not faith. Do you think that Jesus was walking around laying hands on people, doubting that they were going to be healed? No way. That is not who we were intended to be. We are supposed to be little Christ. We are supposed to be walking with the same power and authority that Jesus walked when he was on the earth. And yeah, we might not be casting demons out of people on a daily basis and healing people that are dead and all that kind of thing. But that doesn't mean that we can't use these things in our daily life. And there's so many scriptures that I want to share. But the first one that I want to start with is Proverbs 23:7, which says, "For as a man thinks in his heart, so is he." I think it was, I don't know exactly where I read it, but it was like, as within, so without. Like, what is inside of us is going to come out. It's going to come out in our speech. It's going to come out in our behavior. It's going to come out in our actions or our lack of actions. And just having this belief inside of us or unbelief inside of us, whatever it is, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So when I'm walking on these jobs and like, oh, I don't belong here, these guys, are not going to do a good job, or I'm not going to make the money I was thinking I was going to make when I signed the contract and all this different stuff. Those are negative perspectives. Those are unbelief. Those are not productive. And that is not the way to, it says in Hebrews 11, I want to say it's 6, 11, Hebrews 11:6 says, "For without faith, it is impossible to please God." It is impossible to please God with unbelief. With unbelief, it is impossible to please God. We need to have a confident expectation. That's what faith is. Faith is confident expectation. And that is how we please God. It says he's the rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So as we begin to talk about some of these other steps, you'll begin to see what that really, really means. Now, um, perspective is the hardest thing to override in real time. Okay, like it has the most leverage. Like there is a friend of ours, and I won't say his name, and we've known this guy for so long. And for the last several years, it felt like every single thing that came out of his mouth was just not productive. It wasn't healthy. It was negative. This guy was always going on about his problems and stuff. But I saw this guy this last week, and every single thing, maybe not everything out of his mouth, but the majority of the substance of his conversation was all the things that he was excited about and he was looking forward to, the things that he was confidently expecting and believing in. And it's like this man had been lit on fire from the inside. And I was like, this is the dude that I became friends with. This is the dude that I wanted to spend time with. Like, not this guy that's getting beaten around by life and woe is me and like all he's talking about is all of his problems. No, like he's completely reverted back to the man that I know he is and the guy that God intended for him to be. And that is a man with confident expectation. That is a man of faith. And it is unbelievable the amount of leverage that you get from having firm, confident, actual confident expectation belief, faith. It is the number one thing that you can do because if you do not have belief, then you're not really going to be taking the action that you need to be taking. You're just going to be like, yeah, it's probably not going to work out. So why even try? And dude, I can't tell you how many times I laid in my bed and I didn't even want to get up. I didn't want to answer the phone. I didn't want to do anything because I just felt like, what's the point, dude? Whoever's calling me, they're probably trying to get money from me, or they're probably trying to, tell me about a problem or trying to get mad at me about something. Like, I don't even want to deal with any of this stuff. I can't tell you how many times I was stuck in that perspective, just a mountain of anxiety that I refused to climb. But if you remember I think it's Mark 11, 23, 22, 23, 24, it says, have faith in God. You can say to the mountain, be removed, be cast in the sea. So I want to just encourage you guys, cast that mountain of anxiety into the sea. Just get rid of it. So recognizing unbelief is the first step because the changing of our perspective is the hardest thing to do in real time. Like when um I had this moment earlier. I'll share it with you guys because you're my boys. But uh, I was leaving one of my job sites today, and they waved me down. One of my crew leaders waved me down. He's like, "Hey, let us know what you want us to do with this extra paint." I'm like, "What do you mean extra paint?" And he's like, "All this extra paint that you bought." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He takes me into the garage. He had told me to order 30 gallons. I ordered 75 gallons accidentally. I don't know how this happened. So I'm looking at this stack of paint. This is thousands of dollars of paint that I over ordered that I cannot return because it's tinted in a specific color. And I'm just like, dude, what did I do? How did I do this? But instead of being like, oh my gosh, like I'm so screwed, I just lost all this money. I'm like, you know what? I'll be able to use it on another job or something like that. Well, it turns out it was the same color inside the house. So I'm just going to use it on the same exact job. It didn't even need to leave. And it's just going to go inside the house and it's no big deal. But I had a choice in that moment. Was I going to be upset? Was I going to dwell on unbelief? Or was I going to take action about moving in the right direction and just, you know what, this might have been a mistake, but you know what, it's not going to weigh me down. I'm not going to allow this to cause me to go into a tailspin of anxiety, fear, and all this different stuff. So I was in real time able to change my point of view. Now I've become accomplished at this because I wish I could tell you guys this is the first time something like this has happened, but it's all the time. I go onto a job site and there's something that's not the way that it is. And as they say, this is why they pay me the big bucks because I'm not going to be moved by what I see. I'm not going to be moved by the way that things look. And you guys shouldn't be either. But the perspective is the most leverage that we have. So once you've recognized your unbelief, I felt it welling up in my stomach, like, oh my gosh, this is like $2,000 of potentially unusable paint. Like, what am I going to do? And I was looking at my margins on the job previously, and I'm like, I cannot believe that we've already spent this much money on the job. Like, how are we ever going to finish this job and actually be able to make anything close to the money we were supposed to make? Well, I didn't allow myself to dwell on that. And I started changing my point of view. Like, you know what? I'm going to keep moving. And it's easy to say it, it's hard to do. But I'm building this little process, this personal process for changing my point of view in real time. And I'm going to share it with you guys tonight. It is this three steps. You recognize the unbelief, you change your point of view, and you take action. I'm going to share with you some ways that you can change your point of view in real time. Again, perspective has the absolute most leverage of anything that you can do. If you're sitting there and you don't feel like what you're doing is worthwhile, or you don't feel like you're where you should be and all that stuff, whether or not that's true, dude, that perspective does not help you. Just like my friend that I was talking about, he spent so long kicking it around and just being, frankly, abused by the devil, by circumstances, by situations. And this guy has dealt with things that would make any one of us fold. Like these things that my friend has dealt with are just insane, like the adversity that he's overcome. But he's been able to somehow, despite all of these things, change his point of view. And all of a sudden, now that he's changed his perspective from like, I'm on my way down to I'm on my way up, now all of a sudden you see the doors of opportunity are beginning to open in his life. And you know what, brothers? he's walking through them. I mean, this dude, you hear him talk and you'd be like, this guy's out of his mind. And I love every minute of it, dude. Those are the guys that God called for us to be. Guys that are out of their minds, guys that are so confident they just seem like they're fanatical, like they seem like they have lost their mind completely. But that's who God intended for us to be. And it's despite, that it's despite circumstances and situations. So don't let, past trauma and those different things try to prevent you from being able to believe in a future victory. So when you're changing your point of view, let's talk about like in the moment, like when you're faced with something and you can recognize that unbelief, um, just stop right there because you're going to be able to think yourself into a greater state of unbelief if you dwell on those thoughts of doubt, if you dwell on those thoughts of unbelief. So what do? You anchor to a scripture is a really good one. I shared some here in the bottom of my notes, but frankly, I don't even think I shared any of the ones that I would use in this particular situation. Like if I found myself in a spirit, in a situation where I was recognizing some unbelief was welling up in my spirit, then I would go immediately to Second Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, which says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, right? He's given us a spirit of power and a spirit of love and of a sound mind." Worship, dude. I was walking around this job site today and between meetings, and I'm just like a total nerd, just singing worship songs, dude. Worship songs that I don't even like, dude. And I'm just singing these songs, walking around these job sites, and it's like that is how it's Isaiah 26, I think, verse 3, I want to say. uh, but it says that he will keep in perfect peace the one whose mind is steadfast on him. If you are filling the idle time of your day singing worship songs that you don't even like, then you are clearly, your spirit is full. And that's where we want to be. It's a lot easier to change our point of view from unbelief to belief when we're full of faith, when we're full of the spirit. And like I said, it's he will keep in perfect peace the one whose mind is steadfast on him. So just keep your mind on him. It says in John chapter 15, if you abide in him and his words abide in you, you can ask what you will and it will be done for you. That's another thing, guys. Just ask, man. Just ask. And it's like, dude, if a little kid if they want a cookie, right? And they go up and they say, "Can I have a cookie?" And you say no, do you think they're going to stop asking? No, they're going to be like, "I want a cookie. Can I have a cookie, please?" No. "Can I have a cookie, pretty please?" No. "Can I have a cookie, pretty please, with a cherry on top?" No. "Please, I want a cookie. Can I please have a cookie?" They're going to keep asking. So why aren't we asking like that? Why aren't we making a demand on the things that we're believing for? I don't know. But when we anchor to a scripture, that is a good way of just changing in the moment our point of view about this circumstance or this situation. Another one is to anchor to a previous victory. This is powerful. It is our default setting to attach to a previous defeat. Let me say that again. Our default setting, our flesh, is to attach to a previous defeat, like we were talking about past traumas projected into present circumstances. Like this is the way our mind works. This is the way God designed our mind to work. Now, it doesn't mean that that's not a flesh perversion of the human instincts that God instilled in our brain, right? Because that's what it is. It really is. It's a perversion of these natural instincts that we have, that our default setting is to just say, "Oh my God, I was hurt before in this particular set of circumstances. So I'm probably going to get hurt again in these same similar circumstances." But that is not the case. That is just unbelief. And we just got to be able to recognize when that has taken place and override it by anchoring to a scripture. Or I read this book, fantastic book, Inner Excellence, amazing man of God that wrote it. His name is Jim Murphy, amazing book. But what he talks about in this book is that he's like a mental coach, I guess, for like Olympic athletes and like pro ball players and all this stuff. So crazy, crazy cool what he does. But he gets people to get out of their own way mentally, right? And so one of the strategies that he teaches, again, this is a man of God. He's talking about God throughout this entire book. It's a great book, but what he's talking about in one of his strategies, how he helps people to overcome past trauma, is he actually has them go back, close their eyes, think back on these, issues. Like if they're a golfer and they just all of a sudden they can't putt, they just can't get it in. Then all of a sudden he'll have them sit back, think about not the last time they failed the putt, but the last time they successfully putted, and then think about three more times that they had a really successful, impactful putt, and then just replay that in their mind over and over and over again. And there's more to it than that, but I'll digress from here. But you kind of get the idea. Is he says instead of focusing on the one time that it went poorly, let's go back and focus on the three or four times that it went really, really well. And man, boy, let me tell you, that's an unlock. So changing your point of view, this is completely in our control. It's our default setting to attach to previous defeats and to be on guard and to be in self-preservation mode. I don't want to make too many waves because if I start moving in this direction, I failed in this area before. I failed in this area before. And so I'm probably going to fail in there again. Don't think like that. Change your point of view. Anchor to a previous victory, anchor to a scripture like that we can take every thought captive to the pulling down of strongholds, that God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. There's countless verses that I could share with you that I personally use on a daily basis in the moment to change my point of view. The third step here, because I know we went a little long, but take action, man. Like there's nothing, brother. There's nothing that builds your faith like corresponding action, dude. And I'll tell you another thing, okay? There's nothing that will dig up your seed like sitting on it, not doing anything. If God gave you a word and you didn't act on it, shame on you. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. If God put a word in your heart, and I'm taking this for me too now. If God put a word in your heart, you need to act on that word quickly. If you're moving in a certain direction and all of a sudden it looks like things are not going to work out, and so all of a sudden you ease off the gas, shame on you. That is not how this works. Do you think that Peter would have just been able to walk on the water if he sat on the boat and didn't take that first step? No, of course not. In fact, he probably would have made it all the way to Jesus, dude, if he would have kept his eyes on Jesus, right? But instead of keeping his mind steadfast on him, instead of keeping his focus on Jesus, he started allowing circumstances, the wind, the waves, and the things that were going on around him to all of a sudden discourage him. And then that unbelief started coming. And then all of a sudden he began to sink. And the same thing happens to us in our daily life as we get too caught up in the wind and the waves and the mountain of invoices and all the things that are not going our way and this and that and the other and all the things that are breaking down and da 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 da. And we stop taking action. We stop doing the things that are going to lead to the result, that harvest of what we're truly believing for. Now, nothing builds your faith like corresponding action, actions that align with what you're believing for. When we talk about casting our cares on the Lord, that only works if you don't take those cares back. We have to focus on the things that we can control and actually control them, dude. Like if he put a harvest or something that I'm believing for inside of my heart, and then I knew that there's these different seeds that I need to sow for it, but I'm not sowing those seeds, even though I could be very well sowing those seeds, then I'm not controlling my controllables. Now, if there's something that is outside of my control, but I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it, and I'll tell you guys one of the number one things that I find myself struggling with. And when I say struggling with it, it's like, for work, I have to make sales calls. And And one of the number one things that will prevent me from getting on the phone, or taking the corresponding action that's going to lead to the harvest of increase in my business, is just being afraid of what that person on the other end of the phone is going to think of me. Oh, well, I called them last week and man, they probably don't want to hear from me again. Or, oh man, they're probably not happy with my performance on this other job. So they probably don't want to give me another job. Or, oh man, I sent them the invoice, but it's only been a couple of days. I probably shouldn't follow up with them. Dude, I swear, I had this invoice that we sent to a customer and we didn't hear anything for a week. It was unusual for this customer. And so I called his partner. We are talking about some other stuff. I'm like, hey, what's going on with Tom? We sent him an invoice. We followed up and we haven't heard anything. He's like, oh, yeah, his wife is in the hospital. They're about to put her in hospice. She's just, deathly ill with whatever she's got. And I'm just like, and he's like, so he's been, he hasn't been home. He's been out for like the last week. And I'm like, well, dude, I freaking probably knew that. Like I could have told that, but it was like my fear and my faith or my unbelief is telling me all these things, like reasons why, he's not responding and all this stuff when truly he was just literally not at his desk. And I can't tell you how many times that this happens, but you got to take action, dude. I should have called the partner a week earlier and been like, hey, Tom's not answering the phone, dude. Can you find out what's up with my money? I need to get paid. I got to pay my guys. I got to pay for material, blah, blah, blah. So just take action, dude. Don't be worried about other people. Other people's expectations of you doesn't freaking matter, dude. You cannot control the way that other people see you, the way other people feel about you, their perspective. Like none of that stuff matters. And I'm not saying that you should, be, a jerk or anything like that, or be annoying or anything like that. But you know what? If I'm annoying somebody who's a customer of mine or a potential customer of mine, like, so what, dude? I would rather annoy them than them not even know who I am. And anyway, so let's go back through this one more time. I'll share a couple more verses with you, but the the three steps that we can take here to change our perspective, to really regain the leverage, to make the most benefit out of this process. Perspective is the number one thing that we can do in order to change our situation, because what happens is out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And out of the abundance of our thoughts, mouth speaks. And I have some people, I have this guy that's been driving me around lately, and I was talking to him today. We were just chit chatting. I'm like, yeah, I kind of struggle with money. My wife's way better at it and all that stuff. I'm just not that good at tracking the expenses and having, blah blah blah. And he's just like, "Oh, you used to be." I'm like, I can't believe my freaking driver just corrected the speech that was coming out of my mouth, dude, because frankly, I'm usually the person who's with my friends and people I'm close to. I'm like, no, you used to struggle to do this thing that you were talking about, but now you're getting better at it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got caught. And I'm so grateful that he was able to help me to be able to change the way that I speak, because this stuff works in reverse, guys. One of the verses that I'm going to share with you is Proverbs 18:21 right here at the bottom. It's death and life are in the power of the tongue. They that love it will eat the fruit thereof. If you don't like where you're at, change the way you're speaking about it. Like, do not use your breath to utter things that do not align with what you're believing for or what you are expecting. And it is so easy to do this because we talk, we call it like we see it. We are literally just talking about things the way that they actually are, and that is wrong. We need to be talking about things the way that we wish that they were, the way that we want them to be. So, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Having that powerful internal vision of ourselves and the way that we see our situation is so crucial. But out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And when that abundance of our heart is overflowing in our speech, it's either death or life that is being spoken. And it's important for us to speak death over the things that we do not want to grow in our lives. And we speak life over the things that we want to see manifest. And then I like this verse in Isaiah 40 that says, those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They'll run and not be weary. They'll walk and not faint. It pairs really nicely with Isaiah 57:10, which says you were wearied by the length of your road, yet you did not say it is hopeless. You found renewed strength. Therefore, you did not faint. Guys, I'm on a long road right now. I'm on a long journey, as you guys are as well. And, it's really easy to get weary with the well doing. And, when I started my business 5 years ago, I wasn't thinking 5 years down the road. I wasn't thinking 10 years down the road. I wasn't thinking about any of that stuff. When we started the Faith Builders 4 years ago, I wasn't thinking, man, this thing is going to still be going 4 years, 10 years down the road. I wasn't thinking any of that kind of stuff. And along the way, a lot of the time, I've gotten weary with the well doing, or I've gotten tired out by the length of my road. But not at any point have I thought in those two endeavors, this is hopeless. This is not worth my time. I'm wasting my time. I've definitely been discouraged. But it says in Isaiah 40, those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They will run and not be weary. They will walk and not faint. And a lot of times, when I'm at the end of my rope, when I feel like a failure, when I feel like a loser or bum, or feel like things are not going well, or things are never going to turn around, or I'm, hopelessly at the bottom, those are the times that I look up and I say, this is the place where most people will quit. So I'm not going to quit. I'm just going to keep pushing. And sometimes I just got to keep pushing for another day. But, that unbelief, it's a choice. And I've gotten so much better over the last several years, because the Lord has shown me that these are choices that I'm making. I can choose not to look at things this way anymore. And all of a sudden, when I shift the way that I look at my situation, all of a sudden I start to move different. I start to talk different. I start to act different. And then all of a sudden I start to, there's one of my favorite quotes, and I'll end with this, is from Jim Rohn. If you don't know who Jim Rohn is, look him up, watch some of his stuff. Great, great, great motivational speaker, author, man of God. But he said, when you change, everything will change for you. And man, there's been so many times that I've been at the bottom, and it's like, you know what? I need to start making some changes. I need to recognize that I don't believe in what I'm doing, or I don't believe in where I'm supposed to be going. I change my perspective, and then all of a sudden I start to move differently. So I had a couple guys on here when I started, but man, they aren't on here anymore. So I appreciate any of you guys who were able to stick it out with me and enjoy the replay. What a blessing it is to be able to come on here and share the Word of God. And we're just so grateful for the opportunity to be just blessed of the Lord and fellowshipping with each other and sharing, and frankly, these experiences that I've lived through have allowed me to be able to have some insight into how to overcome challenges and adversity. Because, man, I was just telling you about this big mistake I made today. I face challenges and adversities every single day of the week, all day long. And you know what? That's not just my confession, that's just the reality. But at the end of the day, I overcome every single challenge that I'm faced with. It tells me right here, and I don't have to look very far, because I have verses all over every wall in my office here. But I refuse to fear. I cast out the devil who's trying to destroy my business. The devourer is rebuked over my life and my finances. I take every thought captive to the pulling down of strongholds, and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of Him is going to be condemned. No weapon that is formed against me is going to prosper. Man, I know these things are true because I anchor to these scriptures when I am feeling low, when I feel like I'm, have a little bit of unbelief or something like that. And I'm constantly doing reflection. You'd see, every page of these journals that I have is full of verses and experiences and lists. I'll make a list of things that the Lord has delivered me from. I'll make a list of things that I'm thankful for. I'll make a list of bad habits or good habits or goals, just literally every single thing. But I'm over the last 4 or 5 years, I've had these things every single day. I'm writing in these journals. I'm being encouraged. I'm being uplifted, and I'm writing from my experience. So I have records of these things. So when I have a victory, then I remember it. And and I can't remember exactly where in the word it says it, but it God says to put him in remembrance of his word. So put him in remembrance of his word, that we can cast our cares on him and he cares for us, that we can have whatever we say, that we can tell the mountain to be removed and cast into the sea. And death and life's in the power of the tongue. Those that love it will eat the fruit thereof. So choose carefully your words and choose carefully where you spend your time. I'll give you those three one more time. It's to recognize the unbelief. This is how to get the most leverage out of your perspective is recognizing unbelief, changing your point of view, and then taking action. So I pray for you guys that you would take action, that you would move in the direction of the things that you're believing for, not the things that you are not believing for. If you're starting to see things are not moving in the right direction, by all means, catch yourself by the tongue and don't speak in respect of want. Don't speak in respect of lack. Have confidence. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Ask and you shall receive. You have not because you ask not. Um, anyway, God bless you. Thank you so much for your precious time. What an awesome, awesome night. It was good to see some of my buddies on here for a while. Glad we got to fellowship earlier. But I'll leave it. See ya.